in age.
Hasn't it?
Yeah, I tell you, the last time we were together, what were we doing?
Was it like 24 hours ago?
24 hours ago, and you were trying to hide Welsh cakes in a Pokemon ball.
I successfully did.
You did?
I didn't try.
I mean literally. Yeah.
I would, I don't know why I never thought about carrying snacks in a Pokeball before.
Absolutely.
Has anyone else done that? Yes?
This is, there were so many people that just nodded there. That was yes.
What took me so long? It's, you know why? Because most of us have Pokemon in our Pokeballs, and they'll eat your snacks. But yeah, because this, look, it's a perfect size to have like little Welsh cakes, for instance.
She was literally doing her interview yesterday down like this and trying to stuff this Welsh cake in. Like
because I couldn't eat it.
There was no way you were getting away with that without somebody knowing. It was brilliant.
The worst. I couldn't, I couldn't eat it while we were here, but I couldn't leave it on the table, so Pokeball.
Where did the Welsh cake come from?
From a wonderful baker who came to my table and gave it to me. So, yeah, I ate it.
Nobody brought me Welsh cakes.
You could have had some of mine. So anyway, we're here to talk to you guys about whatever you want to talk about.
Any questions?
You have one.
Hold just 1 second.
Yes?
I think you may have a question.
Do you do all the Pikachu voice, like Raichu and the first of Pikachu?
I do not do, is this regular? I don't do Pikachu actually, but I believe that the actress in Japan who does Pikachu, that she does all of them.
Yes.
I do Ash's voice and some other characters. I did in the first 8 years of the show. But Pikachu is one of the voices that does not change no matter which language Pokemon is translated into. So, yes.
Yes, we wish it was with every character in the show that they just used the one person forever. But yes, she's got a great deal with being the only Pikachu. Yeah.
Is Pikachu your favorite?
My favorite.
Yes.
I was just wondering it's obviously you do various different voices, which would you say are the most challenging? Are there ones that you can't do for prolonged periods perhaps? You can't, because they might hurt your voice, or if they're hard to get into or anything like that? Just wondering.
Yeah, I think,
or switch from one to the other, that type of thing,
I think, are some voices difficult to get into or to sustain, is the question. Yeah, I think certainly doing Ash's voice, if I'm not really warmed up, like goofing around at a convention is not the best for me to do. Because he's way back in here, and it's kind of not the most vocally hygienic because I'm not breathing. But other ones, it depends. One of the reasons you really have to stay healthy is that you need your full range. So if I'm not feeling well or if I'm traveling a lot, sometimes sections of my voice kind of go out.
Yeah.
So to get something that's really high, a lower voice is usually easier to do, but sometimes bits of my range just go away for a little while. So that's really the most difficult thing. I think if you're forming the character and you know kind of who they are, how they move, where their voice is coming from, it's not hard for me to switch between them because I embody them in a way. But if I haven't fully formed the character, which you often have to do in a split second, then it's a little more difficult to sustain it.
A lot of the characters that I play, like a Kaiba, obviously just is closer to my own voice. It's more of the attitude, so that's an easy one. James is easy in one sense because of the lower tones, but if I don't have my upper register, I can't do my woo! I can't get into the falsetto. One of the hardest voices that, and then of course I'm also Butch from the other Team Rocket. And of course Butch talks like this, which sounds like it would be really painful in the voice, but it's not for some strange reason. When I was asked to audition for Dinosaur King, they didn't want me to play any characters that resembled the characters that I played on Pokemon because the template of the characters were very similar from one show to the other. And so the voice that Sean Schimmel is doing in that show is very James-like. It's almost like there's a Team Rocket in there. So they asked, well, let's do something different. And so they asked me to read for Dr. Z. And we're thinking about the voice of the mad professor kind of Dr. Z. And Dr. Z talks like this the whole time, like this. And so I came up with this voice, and they're like, but I said, before I do this, how much does Dr. Z talk in the show? And of course, as shows are put together and we get shows piecemeal, it's like we've seen maybe the first 2 episodes. So the producer and the director said, oh, he says a couple of things in the beginning of the show that sends them on their way, and then at the end yells at them for the fact that they didn't get the job done. It's like hardly a lot of things through each episode to say, okay, then I'll do this, and they pick me for the character. And the 3rd episode, it was monologues of, I'm gonna scream like this the whole time, like crazy stuff. And after that first session, I'm like, you're an idiot, Eric. You're just an idiot. Why would you pick a voice like this? Well, to sound different than the other shows I was in, but that one is vocally strenuous.
You know what's odd? I was told for Dinosaur King, we want this to sound like Ash.
Yeah.
So that's why I was cast as that.
That show is it's the same thing, except for like moments of CGI. It's exactly the same thing.
But even I was like, well, I could make it different. They were like, no, this is what we want.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's another thing that sometimes you don't have the liberty of choosing. You're just told what to do.
And just as a side note to coming up with voices, because I directed a lot of these shows that we were on, and when we're given the original Japanese, we're either told, listen to it, to try to emulate, come up with the same cadence, the vocal register, or something completely different, because humor and things like that are very sort of regional. So the biggest, heaviest character in the show in the Japanese might talk like this, and that's funny. But it's funnier if he talks like this in the English-speaking one. So we go against type. So sometimes we have to follow what they've given us, and we don't have a choice of register of what they're looking for.
Okay. Do you guys ever get to meet your sort of counterparts, your Japanese counterparts? Have you ever met them?
I never have.
No?
No.
No.
Wow.
No. I would love to.
Yeah, I was
It
just
would
thinking it
be
would be
quite an
so
honor.
interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
How do you feel about Rock and Misty being left out of the new Pokemon IQ movie?
I have a hard time with revisionist history in general.
Yeah, exactly.
How do we feel about us being left out of the history? Maybe.
Yeah, it's
It
not
would've been
really
nice
on
to
my
revisit.
radar that I didn't even,
I
yeah.
haven't seen it, I have to admit,
No.
but not yet.
No.
Yeah, it's weird though, isn't it? Because it's supposed to be at the beginning, and I don't know. It's
Yeah,
weird.
you can't really rewrite book of history.
Oh yes, you can apparently.
Yeah.
Little by little, it drips away. Thank goodness for Netflix.
See, now why didn't you ever use that voice on one of our shows?
And nobody asked.
There's a tiny little hand up there, I can see it, just through here.
Yes.
Yep.
Hello.
What's your favorite Pokemon?
Pikachu.
Mine's Gengar.
Gengar, that's a good one.
Mine is Squirtle, because I play Squirtle.
Even a starter.
He's a starter.
That's right.
Water type.
Yes.
That's good.
Water gun attack.
We play Squirtle.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. I'm also Dexter, if you didn't know that. Pokedex. Squirtle, eat water, Pokemon.
Did you have another question?
Yeah, I was just...
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
And now I remember.
Oh, all right.
Right.
What's your strongest Pokemon you've done the voice of?
Charizard.
Diglett?
So here's a little funny side note about the Pokemon, right? So when we come in to do our human character voices, there would always be like an introduction of a new Pokemon in that episode, and normally we didn't know that that's what we were going to be doing, right? When we showed up for the session, and they'd say, "Okay, Eric, there's this new Pokemon in this one. You're the right kind of voice for this. You're going to do this." And so, do you know why the characters, the Pokemon, say their names and in broken syllables of their names, but don't like bark or growl or anything like that? Can you figure that out? It's so that you would remember them as fans. We were basically teaching you, it's Squirtle, 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 Squirtle. By the way, this is Squirtle. So that's why we did that. That's why we weren't allowed to go like, bar, bar, bar. It's like, what is that? That's just more noise. No, it had to be that. That's why we did it. So there you go.
Well, it worked.
Didn't it?
Yeah.
At least for the first 300 and whatever, you know?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you first get into character acting? And any tips for people trying to do the same thing?
Good question.
Yeah. So, how did we start into the voiceover world or
Yeah,
just
sorry,
acting in
voiceovers,
general?
Yeah. voiceovers.
Okay, and tips. Do you want me to start or?
Always.
Oh, thank you. I like this pedal. So I started acting when I was 5, and I did plays all the way through elementary school and high school, and then I went to college and grad school for acting. I toured the U.S. with a number of acting companies. I did a lot of Shakespeare. And then I moved to New York. How I got into doing voice work, actually my first job was on the Batman stunt show at a Six Flags Great Adventure. So I had that because I was in the stunt show, and then they needed someone to do the announcing for the whole show and the main character that was in the show. So so that was my first kind of voice job. And then other than commercials and stuff like that, I was working on a monologue for an audition with an acting coach, and he happened to that day get a call asking for recommendations for people to do anime. And I booked that job, and then they said, can you audition for this, da-da-da-da-da. And then I just happened to be working on a project that was cast by the same people who were casting Pokemon. So that's kind of how, that evolution of things, and I lived in New York at the time. So my tips in terms of that would be get as much training as you can in whatever it is you want to do. If you're an actor, a dancer, a singer, a musician, train so that you have your suitcase is full of your talents. And then you want to network and try to, meet people who can give you work. And then for voice work specifically, make a demo that's about a minute long of what you do best, and preferably done somewhere where it's more professionally done, not at home, so that you have someone to give you some coaching, I guess, on it. What's your background?
So I started off as a musician. That's what I did first. And I was working at a tennis club during the summers. I know you can tell, I used to teach tennis. I was a tennis pro. And more deals are done on the golf course and in the tennis club than any office building or anything like that, right? So I was working there, and one of the members knew that I was interested in recording, in audio. She owned a recording studio, and she said, Eric, we need a new assistant. Are you interested in a job? And as a musician, I was like, this is going to be great. I'll get to work in a studio. It'll be exactly what I want. So I interviewed for the job. I got hired, and it was a great little production company in New York. And what they had me do was sort of the Karate Kid version of learning. I cleaned the countertops, and I made coffee, and I made copies of scripts and things like that. And after about a week or so, I said, when do the bands start coming in to record? Because all that I'd seen were like a couple of actors here and there, and people in suits. And they said, oh, we don't really do a lot of music here. We do radio and TV voiceovers, like commercials. We cast and produce that. And I was like, huh, okay. So I had done like a little bit of theater in school, but my main focus was music. So I was a performer, but acting was not what I was even thinking about.
Was this New York?
Yeah, this is in New York. So I sat basically with my boss, who was a director and a voice actress, and I learned from her, and then I was the casting director, and then I was the producer in that studio, and I would sub in if there was an audition. I would jump in the booth and read with people if someone didn't show up, and little by little the clients would hear the tape and say, we like the last guy, but he didn't say his name. And I'm like, well, that's just me filling in. They're like, yeah, but you read the script the best and we want to use you. And I was like, oh, that's so weird. That, okay, that makes sense. This is a good job to do while I'm pursuing music. People don't see my face. They'll take me seriously as a musician, but I'll make money doing voiceovers. And I ran that studio for 10 years, and one of my clients was working on an anime project, and they said, we're looking for young people voices, and you have a young voice, we'd like to have you audition. And I got cast in Slayers, which is a funny anime show. I played Gowry in that. And from that point on, I realized that this was a perfect job for me. I work hard at it, I edit, I come from the production side, I mix, I do all of that stuff, and I'm constantly learning. I learned from famous actors in New York, great Broadway actors and TV stars and voiceover heroes that you wouldn't recognize if you saw their face, but the minute they open their mouth, you go, oh, I know that voice. and I just absorbed it like a sponge. And my tips are, as I also coach, I do coach students, is that basically the funny voices we do is the whipped cream on what we do. The core of what we do is the acting, right? I know people that do great impersonations, but they can't read a script, right? They can mimic a movie line they heard, but they can't read a script. You need to come up with a way to be the best you. I have had more success speaking with my own voice in voiceovers than any, and I'm talking, you know me from these funny voices, the fame of it. But I make a consistent living speaking like this because I can read anything like I know what I'm talking about, even when I don't. So you break down those scripts, simplify it, who am I, what am I talking about, who am I talking to, make it your own, and you will be light years ahead of many, many actors. And like Veronica said, find opportunities to act anytime you can, with your friends, improv, a play here and there. But when it comes time to make your demo reel, find that professional coach, find that professional studio that's going to pull scripts and copy that's specifically for you and your voice and your talent. You don't need to show, I do everything kind of good. I do these things really great, right? So hopefully that gives you your answer.
Thank you.
Those were two
Yeah, good
really
luck.
good answers. Those were two really good answers.
Yes.
And here's a third. No.
Oh yeah, no.
I'm just kidding.
What was your favorite Pokemon generation movie?
First one? I mean, the first 150.
Yes.
151.
Yes. Easy answer.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I play like 50 of them.
That's why. No, because also we all really could memorize those.
Yes.
And sing the Who's That Pokemon song.
That's right.
Not now. You're picking. Yes.
Hey.
When you were doing a lot of like the recording, did you spend a lot of time working together, or was everything quite separate? Did you get a lot of time to sort of work off each other, get a bit of rapport, or did you do like sort of come and do your lines and then it was all separate?
Yeah, when you're dubbing something, which means it's in made in another country first, and you're filling in the English language as we do. You work alone. You never see the script ahead of time, and you don't have any time to even look at it before you start working. You just go in the booth and start. So there's no time to kind of get to know anyone or hear what other people are doing or anything. And actually, there's no time to really ask questions. It's very fast. You just work fast. I work on Sailor Moon right now. I go in by myself, and sometimes in an hour I could do 6 episodes. Which is why I actually have no idea what's happening in that show. Because we also go between redubbing the old episodes and doing the new ones. So sometimes we do those on the same day. And I have no idea what's going on. But I do just you have to learn to play the moment. I mean, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. I mean, I did all my rock lines.
Yeah.
And then all my James lines. The bonus that I think I benefited from was I got to direct a lot, so I actually got to work with other actors.
That was my bonus too.
Yes, right?
Yes.
So that was cool, because otherwise you just pass each other in the hall, one's leaving, one's coming, hey, good to see you, that sort of thing, or you've heard what they did when you went in the booth and heard their stuff in the playback. But there are a couple of shows we did, like Turtles, we did some group records, and then I also directed a very funny little show called Viva Pinata. And in Viva Pinata, we did that as a prelay show, which is record the voices first, and then animate later, the way that Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! are done from the beginning. But I recorded each actor individually, their lines individually, and then I assembled the timing of their conversations based on how I felt they should speak to each other. And then that was given to the animators. That was a great freedom too as an actor, because you just could read it anyway. There's no lip flap to match. Remember, we do like 50% acting, 50% technical. It's like, great line read, that's hilarious. That's not the timing of the flap.
Right,
You know, figure out a way to do that. So when you see a funny line that flaps completely, where it's not like an on and then an off line, when it's all on camera and you still laugh at it, then you really have to say good job to us, because we've made a line that doesn't fit sound funny and still
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Right?
You know, and also I think that's a great point about putting something together. I work on Welcome to the Wayne, and that show is very fast and really funny. Everyone records separately, even though it's a prelay show.
Yeah.
So, and we do three in a row, 3 takes in a row, and then maybe 3 more, and we tweak stuff. So they're really pulling out what they want to really sew it together into a bit of a quilt of things, and it's amazing how it comes out.
Because if it sounds funny, the visual can support that. I mean,
Right.
slapstick comedy can still be a physical thing, but the timing of a straight line to a punchline can be the difference of frames. You know, how tight it is together. That little bit can make the difference of, that's funny, or now that's really funny,
Yeah.
right?
That's brilliant. Is there any, I mean, it sounds so intense. Are there restrictions on how many hours you can work in a block or anything like that?
Usually like a 4-hour block is.
That's like max, yeah. It depends, and also what kind of episode or thing you're doing. If you're doing a video game thing where you're screaming like an attack over and over and over again, that might be pushing it 3 hours, 4 hours. You know, you don't want to beat someone up. And that's another thing too, just as a side note about that is, your voice, that's your tool, that's your instrument, it's your hammer, right? So if you don't have a voice, you can't work. So you have to protect it. And if a client says to you, I have a deadline, you've got to do these 6 hours or 7 hours of screaming, yeah, you're not paying me enough money for that.
No one's paying you enough money.
For me to then not be able to do stuff for the next week because I've blown my voice out.
Right.
And if you do feel that your voice is starting to go or you're starting to get sick, instead of masking pain with, I don't know if you guys have things like chloroseptic here, you know, but all those things you're doing, it's like if you played sports and you got a shot and you went back in, right, just to mask the pain, you're doing more damage. All those things that numb the pain, they're just hiding the fact that there's damage going on.
And that you could hurt it
Yes,
more.
you can hurt it more. So, you know, keeping yourself hydrated. I use a thing called Singer's Saving Grace, which is an herbal spray that reduces inflammation naturally, and also constantly drinking tea and things like that. But if you feel it's going, the best thing you can do is just stop talking. It's not whispering, that puts pressure on the cords. It's stop talking. And you have to say to your client, I need to take a break. And I know people, they're like, but I'll lose that job. It's like, you know, you'll lose your voice and then you'll never speak again.
Right.
So that's what you have to protect more than anything. Yeah.
This is awesome. This is like a masterclass. I'm loving this. Okay, yes.
You'll be graded at the end.
When you were recording the infamous jelly donut scene, were you aware?
Was there only
Was there
one?
one? Was there one? I don't know.
Was there
Yes.
only one time I referenced that?
Were you aware that they were not jelly donuts, but in fact Japanese rice balls?
And do you know why?
Yes, we were aware.
Yes, do you know why?
Because the dubbing company was worried that the kids in the West wouldn't know what Japanese rice balls were.
It's global. We wanted to make sure that that show was not specifically Japanese, that it was just a dub. We wanted to make it with, no matter what country you were in, you felt Pokemon was yours, right? So, if we're talking about a specific food that's so specific, of course now everyone has sushi, right? But at
In
that,
1998.
yeah, not so much. So you're talking about donuts and things like that, probably more universal. And that's why we did that. Now, why they didn't change the visual, I cannot tell you. But of course, it's one of your favorite moments in that show.
Would you love to hear?
Right, exactly. That and the frying pan.
And also, the other answer, yes, is even if we did say, this is ridiculous, these are rice balls, they would have said, just say the line.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not like we really could have stood up to it.
Yeah, we didn't have the call on that.
No, no.
When you first got chosen for the roles in Portland, did you realise how huge it would actually become?
No. Did you? No, not at all. I didn't even believe it was actually going to go on TV. They said it would, and I was
Yeah,
like,
you have to
"Well, we'll
remember,
see."
they talk these things up no matter what you're working on as an actor. They want to get you excited about it. Or
Yeah.
they tell you it's not going to be a big deal so that you don't ask for a lot of money. But they'll say like, it's going to be huge, it's going to be great, it's going to be great, and then to get you to do more stuff for them, right? Yeah, I'll throw that in, yeah, no problem, I'll play a second character, okay, great. But no, we had no idea.
No idea at all.
No.
Do you get to improvise? So like, can you say, oh, I want to try and do a line like this, or can I try and do something different? Do they allow you to do that?
On Pokemon, no. Actually, on a lot of the shows, I would say most, like, say 99% of anything I've ever worked on, they want you to stick to the script that has actually been tweaked, written, moved around, whatever. People have agreed on this and whatever, and they don't want you to deviate from the lines at all. For most of the stuff that I've ever done, whether it's prelay or dubbing or anything else.
So with a show like Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh, both of those shows were on network television as opposed to cable, right? So with network television, especially in the States, between the hours of 6 and 12, you have to go through the network's filter, their broadcast standards and practices. Every script, every visual, all of that stuff is approved or removed by the network, not by the production company. They make us do it, right? So you can't rewrite the script after it's been approved. But you can tweak the line if the phrasing doesn't quite match. A subtlety would be like James would never say it's, he would say it is, because that's more upscale. So I could lose a contraction like that. But I did improvise one line in Pokemon constantly. When Misty would grab my ear, I added in the line, not the ear. I'd say not the ear every time she did it. It was not in the script. Even sometimes it didn't fit in the scene. She would pull me so fast and then we'd cut to some other like long shot. I would add it to the long shot even if it was across the lake because it had to be there. So that was an ad-lib. And then going to the idea of a prelay show like Viva Pinata, because you're just reading a line, there's no lip flap, I let my actors do 3 in a row and then we would mess around with some improv if they had a funnier idea of a joke, idea. Why not? There was nothing, no guidelines, right? And we got away with some very cool lines in that show because when we would submit the stuff to the BSMP, that's what Broadcast Standards of Practice is called, we used the game of 3. The joke that is way over the top, that they're never going to approve, the joke that we wanted, and the joke that wasn't funny. And we push for that first joke over and over again and fight for it, and there's no way that's going on the air. Fine, then let's go with the third joke. And they'd say, but that's not funny. All right, if we have to go with the second one, we will. And then they would go for it because they felt like they made the choice.
Yeah.
And we'd go, That's what we did all the time. Trust me, that will work. And even if my producers hear that, I'll still fool them.
What's your favorite line to say some of your character voices?
You go.
James would say, I'm a flaming Moltres. That was a good one. And then during the unknown, I said this yesterday when the things are floating around, and he says, I haven't seen this many strange letters since I placed that personal ad. That's a
I loved when Ash had those really personal moments with Pikachu, like, hey buddy, you deserve a good long rest. Or when he would say, hey Brocco. That's my favorite.
She actually calls me, likes that, like,
Brocco. That was the best. And it was in the script.
Yes, that was
sometimes.
Yes, so yes.
I love that.
Good answer. Good answer.
Thank you. You too.
Show
really
me.
Awesome. Good answer.
Have you guys been asked, or would you consider going on Critical Role?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I would. I mean, I love D&D anyway. So, yeah,
Sure, yeah.
We know all the people on that show.
Yeah.
So,
It's work, right?
Why don't you petition
Yeah.
them for us?
Get these two.
I can't just call Sam Riegel on the phone and go, hey, put me into Critical Role, dude. So, plus they've got a pretty good thing going right now. That show is great. Do a lot of people watch that?
Yeah.
There you go. It's a D&D show. It's online. Any other questions?
Yes.
What's your favorite Pokemon?
Pikachu's my favorite for sure.
Squirtle.
The you know, but
do each other's voices.
do each other's voices?
Yeah, like you do rock.
I can't do that.
I can't really do it.
I can't. And anyway, we've already been replaced.
Yeah.
I can't really start replacing.
I don't want to show that I can also do that. That's just going to be too much.
No, it's too much.
Wait, we could have had Eric play all the roles?
What's your worst favorite Pokemon you played?
Oh.
Like voice.
Piglet? No. It's all the same. The worst one that you've played?
Well, see, I don't have one.
Voice.
Yeah, the one that
Yeah.
I don't have one that I voiced that I dislike. I just hate Mr. Mime.
I love Mr.
No, it freaks me out.
I do.
It's weird looking Pokemon. It's freaky.
I don't really have one that I don't like. I will tell you that my daughter was really small and she and I both did Centrit. She was really little and I held her up to the microphone and then I matched how she spoke and then they could blend those together.
She had sweet experiences during the show.
That was it.
Mine
No.
were all dark and depressing.
Yeah. Mine were too. I mean, like, I think I don't know if that ever happened. We're just kidding. Anyone?
Just one question. In the first season of Pokemon, James's voice was much darker in the first couple of episodes.
Yes.
Was that yourself just evolving the voice over time?
No, in the first, I think, 5 episodes, James was played by my buddy Ted Lewis. And actually, when I auditioned for Pokemon, I got nothing. I got no roles. They started recording another actor playing Brock and decided they didn't like him, and then called me and said, "Hey, you're the choice number 2." And I was like, "Yay!" And then my buddy Ted is a stage actor, and he was offered a play. And that's, of course,
In Louisville.
Yeah.
He was in regional theater.
Yeah, fantastic actor, just hilarious, great guy. And so they called me up and said, "Can you come in and imitate him?" And I said, "Okay," because I was doing Brock. They were like, "Can you do James?" And so what he was asked to do was very straight, very dark, very low. And so I started to imitate him. So after like episode 5, like 6 and 7, I'm doing what he did. And I said to the director at the time, "Are you sure these guys aren't supposed to be the comic relief of this show?" And they said, no, they want them very serious. I said, "Are you sure?" "Yes." The next episode, I think I was in drag. And I said, so I added in the woo and all the silly laughing stuff from, I borrow from the greats. I mean, it's Ed Wynn, it's all the old Flintstone stuff. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm borrowing from. So all that goofiness came from my crazy brain. But that's why in the beginning, it is what that is. Yes.
Okay, one last question, and I know you had your hand up first.
How many times would you say you recorded the Team Rocket's motto?
How many seasons did we do?
8.
How many seasons? 52. What's 52 times 8?
Yeah.
And then we did the motto probably twice in an episode, right?
Yeah, that's right.
There's your math right there. We had to repeat it each time because there was always a specific change in the middle, so, right? Little joke, little change joke. But also, the lip flap was always different. You would think that the Japanese would have said, "Hey, let's always animate the same amount of lip flap. It's the same motto, opening, closing." No. So sometimes they'd say really fast, sometimes we'd say, "Protect the world from..." Then it's like stuff like that. So yes, that's how many times we did it.
Fantastic.
So, okay, is someone else coming in right now?
We could go on for maybe 2 minutes
It's
longer.
just started pouring outside. Maybe we should talk a couple more minutes.
Let's 2 minutes.
Just 2 more minutes.
2 more minutes.
because
2 more
maybe it'll let
minutes.
up a little
Okay.
bit.
So these questions better be really good.
Only 'cause it's you.
Yeah.
Look, I don't think anyone's going to be able to leave right now.
No, we're not going
I'm
anywhere.
not going. All right. What's your question? Yeah, we'll go really fast.
It's a bit of a sort of technical question.
Right.
Do you ever get called back into it? So ADR, so where you have to have the
Good.
screen in front,
Right.
sort of sync up. Do
Yeah.
you ever get called back in to do any of that, or do you just record the lines and like, yep, that's good?
Oh, with Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh, we are matching lip flaps the whole time. We only do ADR.
Oh,
For those shows,
Yeah.
yeah.
do you do any of the other shows, or?
Yeah, I mean, we work on shows that are prelay where you just record the voices and then also ADR. So, yeah, all of that. Some TV shows you get called back in and you're kind of looping your own voice for stuff too. But yeah.
Yeah,
both of those
and
things.
if you do a prelay show, and then they have fixes after the animation has been completed, then you come back in
Then you
and you
come
do
back.
ADR to the animation.
Yeah, there's a lot of, even on Welcome to the Wayne, we do the thing prelay, and then there's some hits or whatever that we don't do the sound for that in the original thing. I have an umbrella too. And then we do it later with the hitting or sliding on something or whatever. We get called back in for that. So, is there another question?
Have you ever played the main series Pokemon games? Just out of curiosity.
I've played Pokemon Red and Pokemon Go.
I'm a gamer, but that's not my style of gaming at all.
What is your style of gaming?
Wildlands, Destiny 2, Gears of War, co-op, multiplayer.
No Smite?
What?
No Smite?
Is that a game? Is that a real game?
That's against mythological gods.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm on that too. But I do stuff on that, but I didn't know if it was real. I didn't realize that like people play that. I have it written in my phone. I'm not sure who I play, but I'll tell you. I'll tell you. I didn't know if it was a real game. Oh, is it? Okay. Yeah, I worked on that. The name is so strange. I was like, does anyone even know what this is? Anyway.
It's got a pro league and everything.
Does it? Well, I don't know. You know, like I don't have any any devices at home to play any games on, so I never see anything I work on. I like the ones like Your Puppy and Grow a Garden and Professor Galaga and stuff like that. So
I have my Atari 2600 with 50 games in a box. I have my PlayStations 1 and 2 with a link cable. And when I used to have one TV with picture-in-picture in my living room and one TV with picture-in-picture in my bedroom, I would play Doom with my buddy so I could and send the feed so I could see his screen on my picture-in-picture. I've got my NES. I've got my Genesis with the 32X so I could play Doom when that came out. I've got my PlayStations 2 and 3. I've got my Xboxes, my 360. I'm a gamer.
I have a DS.
She can play Pokemon.
Yeah.
Right.
And I go to the arcade to play Galaga.
Yes. Yes.
You guys, the rain has let up.
It just has
It's
let
a
up.
Poke miracle.
It is indeed. I just wanted to say that was such a great panel.
Oh, thank you.
Great panel.
Thank you.
And then,
The rest of the day, so come by if you have other questions. And this has been so wonderful to be here in Wales with all of you. And I just thank you for coming out to the show for the 10th anniversary. It's so exciting, and I hope we're all here for 10 more years. So.
And let's hear it for our host who's working so hard this weekend. And thank you for making my first trip to Wales awesome.